2013, I had this massive panic attack. And I talk about it in my book, Man Up. I had this panic attack and it was so bad, I thought it was a heart attack. And I was like, holy shit, here I go. This is how I died at the age of 38. And what was really crazy, Frank, is I wasn't afraid of death at all when I was thinking I'm having a heart attack. I was so sad for my wife that I broke a promise that we'd be together for decades till death do us part, not just like a decade and a half and death do us part. And then number two, I remember thinking, who's going to walk Chloe down the aisle? And number three, who's going to teach Andrew to be a modern day knight? To be a capable, confident man who's going to be an asset to society. Like those are my core values. And I was like, well, I guess, this is what happens. I'm having a heart attack. Well, as it turns out, it was a panic attack. It was a byproduct of a lot of unprocessed trauma. I'd been molested as a kid growing up in Armenia. When we escaped the Soviet Union, we literally escaped me getting molested on a daily basis by two older boys. We came to the United States and I was bullied and beat up by gang members in Santa Ana, living in Section 8 housing. Had my hair washed with gasoline because we couldn't afford lice treatment when I had lice. And so when you grow up with a whole bunch of trauma that's unprocessed, you show up in a different way. And I was always broke. And so my whole thing was I'm going to be big and strong and rich. All right. So externally, someone could point out and say, hey, man, that guy's jacked and financially successful. But I had so much unprocessed trauma that I walked around with. I felt shame. I felt guilt. I felt rage. I felt broken. I felt unlovable. Now, how is that person going to have a peaceful, happy life? You're not. And so, thank God for that panic attack because that led me to working with a therapist for 15 months. So that's 2013. Now we go into late 2014. And before you know it, I start doing more of the self work. So 2015, 16. And then, of course, as you start processing through your trauma, the real authentic you, as Joseph Campbell says in his book, The Power of Myth, your radiance begins to shine. And I look at the radiance. We all have radiance, like especially children. We're all born with this bright, glowing orb of radiance deep in our gut. And that's the curiosity and that's the honesty. That is the no filters that children have. And they just go after what they want because there's no limiting beliefs yet. And then soon people tell you, watch out, Frank, be careful. Don't do that. That's wrong. Not so loud. No, don't you. There's a risk there. Be careful. Soon people start putting these dark colored blankets on top of your orb, your glowing orb. And now there's just barely a tiny little flicker of nothing. And you become a human robot, screen sucking out of social media and getting your dopamine hits with every swipe. And so as I went through the self work and 15 months of therapy and then another 2 years of self work and just constantly doing hard shit that I had told myself, I'm not made to run a marathon. I'm not made to rock climb. I'm not made to surf. I'm just made to lift weights. Bro, I broke through so many mental and physical barriers that I discovered the true self, the higher self. And we all have that. We are all human animal and we have to erode the human animal, kill off the human animal and become human being consciousness.